First of all, does anybody know who Jonathan Casillas is?
Yeah, he's the guy who does the Giants. He's a former New York Giant. He's on the radio broadcast, the pregame and the postgame with John Schmelk.
Right, and so Jonathan must have been in here last night because he's left all his crap here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. See, like he's, we got the flip chart, we got bottles, we got name tags.
Wow!
Just totally left it a mess.
Well, he's a former NFL guy, so you guys don't like to clean up after yourselves.
No. I clean up after myself. I know who he is, and the point being is that, he's got to be a little bit more respectful when he comes into my house.
Yeah, that's true.
All.
Yep.
I'll have a conversation with him. All right, so you're right. You're exactly right. I can't take any more. You can't take any more. Jet fans can't take any more. If Rob Saleh ends up losing his job or Joe Douglas ends up losing his job, which I doubt is going to happen, it's all because of the quarterback. It's all because of the quarterback. And then, on a parallel path, what you also have is Aaron Rodgers keep telling everybody he's coming back and doing something that nobody's ever done before. I mean, you have like these parallel stories that are just enough already. Enough. I can't take it. Yesterday at halftime, Drew Kliskey's in my ear. You want to say something about the Jets? I'm like, no, I don't want to say anything about the Jets. I'm going to be talking about it for 4 hours tomorrow morning. I mean, what do you do? The question for us yesterday at halftime was like, what would you do? And I'm looking at Coach, what would you do? I mean, I guess I would try to block 8 guys and just send 2 guys out for a pass that make it somewhat palatable that at least he knows where he's throwing it. But he has been overwhelmed for 3 years. I mean, completely overwhelmed. And it's unfortunate that he tripped yesterday. It adds to the narrative. It adds to the story. It adds to who he is. And it adds to everything that everybody hates about him. And, he is in the proverbial fire and has been for 3 years. And for some reason, somebody over there thinks that this is the best way to do it. When I'm sitting here watching Tommy DeVito get his brains beat in, yet still have the guts and the balls to stand in there and lead his team to victory and throw 3 touchdown passes, something Zack Wilson's never done.
Right, when they were a 9.5-point underdog on the road, which was a bigger underdog than what the Jets were, by the way. So it's not like he was in some sort of favorable situation, even though they were playing the Commanders.
Right, and the Giant defense got 6 turnovers. They were unbelievable themselves, and they played great. And Sam Howell was just brutal yesterday. He had that foggy look in his eyes. You could see it on the sideline. And that foggy look is something that Zach has had for 3 years. Like, there is just absolutely no confidence whatsoever in the young man to lead this team to a first down, let alone touchdowns. And you could see it. It's obvious for everybody. I don't know. I have no idea what the front office, and I love Joe Douglas. I consider him first a friend, and then now I have to cover a friend who's unfortunately dealing with a decision that he's been a part of that is going to ruin him as well. And I haven't talked to him, and I won't talk to him during the season because he's got enough on his plate, and he doesn't have to explain anything to me. But he's going to have to explain a lot to a lot of people about this particular player who is a complete and utter bust. I don't know what else to call it. Nice kid, nice family, whatever. I'm not going after his character. I'm not going after his integrity. I'm not going after any of that. What I am going after is the performance. And we could sit here, and I've been through offensive line changes. I've been through different problems with certain players who stand next to the quarterback and do nothing, a la Dalvin Cook yesterday during a blitz as if he had no idea who to block. And he's standing next to Zack Wilson as he gets just absolutely steamrolled by the blitzing linebacker that is Dalvin Cook's responsibility. And I'm like, hey, Dalvin, how much did you pay for those tickets? I mean, because you got the best seat in the house watching your quarterback get drilled. Now, I don't know. That probably wouldn't happen if Aaron Rodgers were there, because Aaron Rodgers would look over to Dalvin Cook and say, look, man, you got 45, whatever the number was. You got him. Because you obviously don't know what you're doing. And that goes back now to the coaching. And that goes back to Nathaniel Hackett. Now, you can only coach so well with the players that you have and what their abilities are. But when you compare, and I'm not sitting here saying that Russell Wilson is lighting up the league, because he's not. He, too, is still struggling, but He's not the struggling that he was last year. Like last year, it looked like he didn't even want to play for Nathaniel Hackett. Like he didn't understand the offense, didn't understand what was going on. And, he had his worst year as a pro. And with that contract extension, it looked like the biggest bonehead move in NFL history, other than what the Browns did with Deshaun Watson. And now you sit here and you watch Zack Wilson just get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse every week. And I'll be the first to tell you, playing in Buffalo is a bitch, especially them coming off of that, the loss, and firing the offensive coordinator and everything else. But I mean, to just look at the position, you cannot put that kid on the field anymore because he's not sure of what he's doing. There is absolutely no confidence in him whatsoever within the locker room. And that's, to me, is the most important thing, regardless of what the fans or what you and I think. The most important thing is, what do his teammates think of him in that locker room? And here we are a year later, and it's deja vu.
Yeah, I mean, and this is exactly what happened and exactly what we said when Aaron Rodgers went down, that here it is again. It's last year all over again. And then they ended up beating the Eagles, and they got a little bump from that. But then outside of that game, just barely squeaking by the Giants, losing to the Raiders, losing. And then, I mean, they're probably going to lose to Miami on Black Friday and go from 3-3 to 4-7, just like that. And actually 4-3 to 4-7, just like that. And anybody who has watched Zack Wilson from the beginning and wasn't clouded by the Jet delusional syndrome that a lot of the fan base had because they didn't want to let go of Aaron Rodgers. They didn't want to let go of what this season was supposed to be because everybody was so pumped up going into the year. And I understand. And to have that fall apart in 3 plays, 4 plays, it was devastating. But you had to understand the reality then. And you just hung on and hoped and wished.
Unkillable.
No, he killed you. He killed you, and we knew he was going to kill you.
Playoffs with Zack.
Yeah, sorry.
I have Zack's back.
I mean, this is why, as Brandon said that day, we were walking around like losers or whatever because we saw Aaron Rodgers go. This is the reason why we were right about that. And I sat here and had to take calls and people telling me it's not his fault. Stop. And this better be the end of it. It better be. And I know that the options aren't great, but that's on the team itself. I mean, that's on Joe Douglas. That's on these guys. That's on these guys believing in him for too long and taking 1 or 2 throws in practice and making it seem like he was going to figure it out one day. And I want to know how Rob Saleh was told to bench Zack Wilson. Was it within a text message from Woody Johnson, or did someone hand him a note? Because we know that he didn't make that decision himself.
He had to make that decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't sound like he makes any of these decisions himself.
I know. It's unfortunate because now it's back on him, too. It's back on him. That I mean, the fact that Zack tripped on the field and then ultimately ran over Rob Saleh on the sideline is just like the images of those things are so unfortunate for that team and for those guys and for the coach and the quarterback in particular.
Yeah,
because they're the ones, unfortunately, that are gonna be taking.
I mean, that
the
is
brunt
just,
of all of this.
Is that not just perfect? I mean, one of the last images you're going to have of Zack Wilson, hopefully playing quarterback for the Jets, is him physically taking his head coach down to the ground. I mean, it is poetry in motion. Really, you couldn't have scripted it any better.
It's slam poetry is what it is.
I mean, think about that. It's like a movie. I mean, this is what has been going on. Figuratively, actually happened. Zack Wilson took out his head coach and put him onto the ground.
Something. I have history and credibility with the story like this because I went through a season like this here.
Yeah,
and I know what it feels like in the building. I know exactly what it feels like when you go to work. It's just miserable. And when Zack goes walking in that building today, it's like all eyes are on him. Everybody's talking about him, and they probably have been for months now, if not for an entire year, because we had the F Mike White or the F and Mike White T-shirts last year at this time, and all of that stuff that's gone on for this. I will say it, and the football player is one thing. It's still a human being and it's still a kid. And he is in the meat grinder and has been in the meat grinder. And anybody who has ever stood in those shoes understands what he's going through. That's why there is a tinge of sympathy that I have for what he's going through, because I was a little bit older going through almost the same exact thing. And I got hurt in the middle of all of it. And at least I was able to take 4 weeks off and get the hell away from it. But, he's standing in there. I give him credit. I watched his post-game press conference on SNY last night. I mean, he's saying the right things, but he comes across oblivious to what is going on. I mean, like, Josh Dobbs almost won another game last night in Denver and was making throws. I'm sure you watched this game last because your team, but he was making throws where he has to jump up in the air, get hit in the ribs, and he's completing passes down the field in an offense that he's 3 weeks into. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have Tommy DeVito running all over the place. Half the time, I know he's not sure what he's looking at, but he's not turning over. And yet, he still has the balls to get up and run around and throw strikes and throw touchdown passes. And the 3 touchdown passes he threw were right on were Danny Dimes. They were right on the money.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, I don't know what the long-term answer is for the Giants at quarterback. I don't know where Tommy DeVito is going to be after this. But this morning, after you wake up after this game yesterday, this kid, it was a dream come true. It was really, truly a dream come true for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that is a great story in a year of so many downs. This Tommy DeVito thing is cool. And ultimately,
think about that. Compare that to who he is, to who Zack Wilson is.
I know. And listen, we've been doing this for the entire year.
Yes.
Every single example we can give. I mean, over and over and over again. And some people just didn't want to believe it. Like I said last week, where people were still calling up about Zack Wilson. Oh, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. It's not. Actually, you know what? You are right in a way that it's not his fault anymore, but not in the way that people were arguing. They would blame the offensive line. They would blame drops. They would blame everything. It's not Zack Wilson's fault anymore. It's Joe Douglas, Rob Saleh, and anybody else that's in that decision-making room, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Woody Johnson, Nathaniel Hackett. It's their fault. He shouldn't be on the field. He shouldn't have been on the field the last 4 weeks. He shouldn't have been the backup this year. It's not his fault anymore because he's not good enough. And I'm not saying that he's not trying. He's probably trying his ass off. He just doesn't have it to be an NFL quarterback, and they continued to be stubborn and trot him out there, and you blew a season again. And you had opportunities to upgrade the position. You had opportunities to go in a different direction. You had an opportunity. I mean, think about the time they finally waved the white flag. Down 29-6 with your team 4-5 with 3 or 4 minutes to go in the third quarter of a game that you're getting blown out in.
Well, they did score a touchdown at the end of the first half.
Right, which is hilarious. Like in the game, Zack Wilson, they finally score a touchdown, and it's the game that Zack Wilson gets benched in. That's how bad they were around that touchdown.
And they hadn't scored a touchdown since they played the Giants. And, the interesting thing was that touchdown came because they called a fake punt. Mm-hmm. And then they also had a roughing the passer penalty finally.
Yep.
And, so you had a little help there from the Buffalo Bills in certain ways, and they ended up scoring that touchdown, which I was saying at halftime was like, desperate measures. I mean, desperate times require desperate measures. And they tried it. They tried to do whatever they could. And, the defense, by the way, with all the fighting going on in this game, you could tell that both teams were, at a razor's edge just simply because of, what the game meant to the losing team. The winning team would save their season at least for another week. And now the Buffalo Bills can feel that way when they wake up this morning. But the New York Jets have got to be looking now. Black Friday game, Dolphins coming to town. Man, you talk about another situation where you got to say to yourself, like the Giants. I said to Nate Burleson before the Giants played yesterday, I said, watch the Giants win today because they own the Washington Commanders. They own that team. For whatever reason, they own that team.
And me and Jerry picked them. Yeah. And use that exact point. They always own that team. They always beat them no matter what.
You can't make it up. And you have, 6 turnovers by the Commanders. And you have all those sacks. What were there, 11 sacks in this game? Was this 11 or 10?
Yeah.
Some crazy number of sacks. Of course, the defense for the Giants deserves the game ball because Wink Martindale's group came out and kicked the living crap out of Sam Howell and his group.
Thanks so much for watching the video.
Please like and subscribe.
And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified when we're dropping new content.